We already have anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm not against this ordinance. I think we should, personally, I think, I'm with Councilman Burgley. I don't see why we don't do it. There's just gotta be some regulations on it, where there's no roosters, they have to be penned. You're only limited to so many. I mean, most of these residents, all they want is the eggs.
Well, not even that, but some of them have kids that are in 4-H project.
That could
And
be
I
as well.
hate to tell you, I can take you to about 4 residents already that have chickens.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
And I mean, I don't care. I just don't wanna hear roosters growing.
I don't either.
I listen to some peacock.
Yeah, that's my point. No roosters. I say we say no roosters. We put a few stipulations on this. And I don't know about you gentlemen, but I'm for it. I just say we put, you know, they have to be penned in an enclosed cage. No roosters. You're only limited to maybe 5 or 6 hens.
Well, the only two discussion areas I found is how we discussed, you already said no roosters. I didn't think of the noise, so I guess I'd be in favor of more roosters. I agree with that.
Like I said, the hens gonna be noisy too.
They can.
I've had chickens before, not in East Sandy, but in other places. I've raised them on other people's property, so.
Your hens ain't that bad, though. The roosters are horrible.
The other one I have, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paul, sorry.
The only other question I had on this one was sale of eggs, I guess. If you wanna sell to friends, or, I mean, maybe no commercial selling of eggs, but, I mean, just to say no selling of eggs.
We have a farmer's market, we could bring them up there.
Yeah.
And people barter all the time, you know, you bring me some tomatoes, I bring you some eggs, type of thing, so.
I think they're probably, like in yours, it's probably pertaining to no putting a sign on your front door, eggs for sale.
Kind of like their no panhandling type things.
You know, you look at Minneapolis and St. Paul, they all have
They
chickens.
have them.
And I know that for a fact, because I gone to some houses and worked on them, and I looked outside and there's this chicken coop, I'm like, holy cow. You know, when I brought that up, and this one other time it was discussed, with the previous mayor, he says, well, Minneapolis, St. Paul has the health inspector goes around and sees to it that it's clean, and that everything is fine, and no diseases. You know, I guess I understand that we're small enough that we can't afford to have that kind of person on staff. But, you know, I think, you know, and along with these stipulations, that they need to keep it clean.
Right.
Because chicken feces can be pretty nasty. You know, if it becomes a problem, then they aren't gonna be allowed to have it.
Right.
I mean,
Is it appropriate to have community input? Cause we have somebody here that's for it.
If the presiding officer would like to allow someone to come speak on this, it would be your choice.
I don't mind if you want to step forward and speak. If you don't,
Name
just say your name and address for the record.
Lori Dewson, 710 Marion Street in Isanti. And I brought this issue up to Paul Burgley because I was one of the residents that received a letter, probably from the previous mayor's administration, that they know somebody in the neighborhood has chickens and they're gonna get a big fat ticket if they don't get rid of their chickens pronto. And I just thought that was ridiculous. We have chickens, like Stevie alluded to, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, North Branch, Ramsey, Elk River. I mean, everybody around us is allowed to have chickens. People in Cambridge I see them all the time. And I just think that, you know, outside of being a chicken farm, that we should be allowed to have a few chickens, like you said, with a few clean. I mean, I don't want stinky neighbors either. And
Do you
I
have
mean,
chickens currently, Lori?
I don't, but,
You're for this though? I mean,
absolutely.
Would you get chickens?
I'm not even sure about that, but I think I should have the opportunity to.
But you came forward on behalf of everybody else.
Yeah, well, and on behalf of myself, because at some point I had thought about having chickens, and then I realized that it was out of the ordinance, and then that letter came around, and I don't know if my neighbor actually got rid of their chickens or not, but, I think they would appreciate the ability to have a chicken or two, or I don't even know how many they had. And yes, you can hear the hens barely, but, it's no more, to me, I mean, I hardly ever heard them compared to some people's children screaming, dogs barking, cars going by fast, so it wasn't any more of a noise nuisance in our neighborhood. I don't know what it would mean if everybody in the neighborhood decided to have chickens, but I don't think that'll happen.
somebody over by me that doesn't live in the city, has a peacock, and that thing was screaming like it was screaming for help. It sounded like a kid screaming for help, or, it's a peacock. You heard that?
So-
Yeah, so I mean, that's, like you said, kids, that, I actually have a bigger problem, kids screaming. I'm trying to have the windows open and the kids are screaming, I was like, the kids are kids, you know,
You live in a neighborhood and you have to expect some
Yep.
noise, reasonable amount of noise. If you don't have reasonable amount of noise, then live out of the city. But as far as roosters go, I know most of the cities have allowed hens, Xed out the roosters because of the noise factor with that, but.
I don't wanna be told sunrise. I already know.
They-
I'm already saddened.
Oh, my dad, roosters do it all day long all night long. They're-
Yeah,
they're not
no
open
thanks.
at all.
No
So,
thanks.
I would appreciate it if you would allow the city residents to decide for themselves if they wanted to have a few chickens, and then as far as containment and smell and all that, you can't just say they can't smell because everybody has a different definition of that. Now, I know that, several years ago, I had gotten a letter from the city that my dog had illegally excreted in my backyard, and that was against city ordinance. So if my dog couldn't crap in the backyard without it being a crime, I would suggest that you have some specific rules about what stinky means, because,
Just keeping the pens clean, I think, would be
on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, once
No.
a week or couple times a week,
absolutely, yeah,
whatever.
twice a month, what have you. But you
However-
just don't want it feces stacking up and
well,
And when
absolutely.
you bring species in, you bring other
animals
Diseases
or
or bugs or
insects.
whatever.
I was just.
Not to mention that chickens do eat ticks and mosquitoes
They
too.
do.
And
So-
June bugs.
And June bugs, and we have an overabundance of all three.
So, anyway, I just think that having specific guidelines as to what pertains to a problem and smell and amount of stacked up, because everybody is gonna push the boundaries on some of that.
Well, I mean, you
So,
know,
I don't know.
some people, the previous mayor went off on a tangent where he required that everybody have garbage service. Now, if you want a business, say you have a, business over here or whatever, and you have a dumpster you're paying for already, and you take your garbage from home and put it in your dumpster at work,
Right,
he's still requiring you to have a garbage service at your home, which is kind of redundant. I mean, that's just kind of dumb. That's because somebody near him had garbage stacked up in the garage. If you wanna have your house look like a pigsty, that's your thing. That's your business. I'm not going into it, I don't smell it, I don't see it, I don't care. And that's the same thing with chickens. If it isn't affecting me in any which way, I could care less.
You have an enclosed chicken coop behind your house, you don't essentially hear them, you don't essentially smell them, who cares? Yep.
it's like a rabbit.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys dictate rabbit cages and how often people clean them, and, I
Well,
know.
but if they get smelly, I think we'd be
So then you
dictating.
have the same, maybe, kind of
Yeah,
rules
same.
about chickens. If somebody's having an issue with it, they call, people investigate it.
The 25-foot smaller building is smaller than 25.
So,
Well,
That's all I
that would
need.
vaccinate you sitting next to me then.
Thank
you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori, appreciate it.
Thanks,
I
Laura.
would definitely put in writing what breeds of chickens are allowed, no guineas, no, I mean, I don't know if you guys know what a guinea is, but
I have no clue.
they are extremely loud. I'll take a rooster over a guinea.
I would actually lean on the farmer in our group, so Ms. Wood would have to tell us.
And we have a few chickens where I live, but,
Or Chief Myers, I believe, he might know about chickens.
He knows about every
it does
kind of
get, it
animal
may get a little bit
around.
difficult, if we just say certain breeds, but maybe we want to exclude guinea hens, just to be clear in that. My recommendation is, if the consensus of the committee is that we do wanna move forward with having chickens allowed within city limits, is that we maybe go through each of these categories and just give staff a little bit of guidance, and then at the next committee of the whole, we'll bring a draft ordinance, because there's not a lot of variation, but we can, as you can see in the table, some have lot requirements, some just have within residential, some have 4, 6, 10 hens. So do we wanna go through those maybe briefly?
Yeah, we can go through them briefly, I think it's a good idea.
Who came up with Lori sent me this, that's the only reason I came up with this. Sheila, were you? the one?
Sheila,
Were there some cities that had, breed,
Requirements.
requirements? Do you remember?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there was one city that specifically said a certain breed, but I would have to look through the ordinance. I attached the ordinance in the summary table of everything. I have to look, I can't, it might have been Minneapolis that had specific breeds.
No, that's not.
That weren't allowed. They didn't list the breeds that,
No, they don't list them in here.
But one of the cities, and I can't recall it, the book, specifically said a couple breeds are permitted.
Well, all we have on the table is.
Yeah.
North Branch.
It's in your packet.
Oh, it's in our packet.
Yep, the number, item 2 in your packet has an entire summary sheet, and the corresponding ordinance is attached to all those cities that are in the summary. So there's about 10 cities on here.
I thought North Branch looked like the best one out of all those that you sent, so.
Which is, the county of Chisago is the one that we have in front of us, which is North Ranch. You know, so I mean, even for us to mock or pick through these real quick, I think would be sufficient to what we wanna adopt.
Yeah.
But I think they show less than 1 acre is 6. Most, let's say lots are 1/4 of an acre, or maybe half at the most, so that, I mean, that's limiting to that amount. I kind of perused through this, and it does look like North Branch is pretty,
It's pretty sufficient to what we should do, I think. I agree with you too.
and but I think again, like Dan says, getting hens are, those things, like he said, roosters are quieter, those things are.
So maybe I mean, is there anything in here that you wanna ex-nate? Cause this is actually pertaining to chickens, ducks, turkeys. I mean, I don't wanna,
Well,
we're saying chickens.
yeah, well, chickens, ducks, turkeys, we got wild ducks already, we got
We do.
wild turkeys running around out here already, so what's the difference if you had, but I don't
True.
think anybody's gonna have a turkey ranch here in seeing,
Well, they will if you allow it.
but they're only limited to.
I think, Josie, we should change E to just no roosters. See how it states in there? Just no roosters. There shall be no roosters on the property. That's
I
my
like
favorite thing.
I like what Councilman Collison said on J, sale of eggs. The residents can go up to the farmer's market. Does that sound good, Councilman Collison? You like that?
Yeah.
So the permitting of eggs at the farmer's market is governed by,
Park and Rec.
no, well, yes, but they have to abide by rules by the Department of Health and,
Yep, yep.
some Department of Ag, and there is some work, I mean, they have to have stipulations on it. I don't know if we should say that they can, per se, you can sell it at the farmer's market, putting that language in here.
You can sell the eggs at the farmer's market pending that you pass Department of Health and.
And this just already
Yeah.
says that they're prohibited from selling in residentially zoned
Right.
properties, so
So
they can't
then
sell it
we-
out of their house.
Yeah,
So you'd be
Really, what do
permitted
we
to
care
do
where it comes
commercial,
from?
other things,
That
this is
covers
just
it,
limiting
yeah.
it, yeah.
it covers it though.
And I think
It's
we got,
stated.
where it says on here, on F, property owner shall maintain the coats and enclosures that are in good shape on site, and free from major defects, also kept clean.
Maintained.
Well,
Well, it does say
kept
shall
clean.
maintain.
Maintained, that you can consider that.
Kind of vague.
maintaining the coop, as there's no holes in it or whatnot.
Right.
I mean, I think that,
Maintained in a structural and housekeeping fashion. I don't know how you put that. You could,
I'll just write a note to expand on it and
Yeah.
then.
I think what J should be added, as Councilman Collison said, was we should do no kings. That should be added to this, and it's not on here. Otherwise, I like the way North Branch did this.
yeah.
There's nothing in here that I would change, except for put City of Isani instead of North Branch on it.
So they do not have a lot size requirement, so we would not either.
They do.
They do it on the backside.
Less than 1 acre.
It says less than 1 acre, 6, 1 to 2.5, 12. Do we wanna skim that down, gentlemen, or do we just wanna go by that?
Shall be at least 30 feet from any residential dwelling adjacent property. That makes it pretty tough for people with 80-foot wide lots to put a chicken.
So 30 feet from their,
Personally, I don't want any chickens next to my house. But that's.
Get another cat.
Then I'm going to spoil it.
So Sheila, for that, shall be at least 30 feet from any residential dwelling on any adjacent property, that's not the line, that's actually would be their house,
It's their house, and they're talking about the coop specifically.
not
So the coop
fenced
would have to
area.
be 30 feet from the house.
From the hall.
the
Or from your
adjacent
neighbor.
house.
House or
Yeah.
a house on the other side.
You have to be 30 feet from the house, which is
It's 10
generally
feet from the side
10 feet
from-
off the property line anyway.
Shall be 30 feet from any residential dwelling or adjacent property.
And the coop would also then be, regulated through the permitting process as a structure, if it met that size.
If it's over 250 square feet, it would require a building permit, but that is also something to consider, the number of accessory structures you're allowed on a residential lot. You're allowed 2 detached, so would this count as one of them?
I would say it would count as one of them.
Although that is, because if you have another structure, that makes it impervious surface, where the chicken coop isn't gonna be impervious surface, any water can still soak through that road. That's the object of having that 250 square foot property through the building.
Mr. Mayor, if it has a roof on it, it is considered impervious, so the water cannot go through the chicken coop through the top. It would be counted impervious surface.
Yeah.
Well, that I'd have to disagree with, because chicken coops are all wide open. You might have a small structure, but you're gonna have, in that coop, you're going to have
The
open
fenced
area
area.
that they can range in.
That's not included, it would just be the enclosed coop
Yeah,
part.
so nobody's gonna build 250 square foot. If you build a chicken coop that size, that's more than 6 chickens.
Okay, but then we
So I
would
mean-
include it though as an accessory structure though,
But
just
then
that.
but that accessory structure has to be determined how big that, the coop is, not the fenced in area.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you're not gonna
Yeah.
make a coop that's that big. To me, that, I guess I wouldn't really be overly concerned as long as you're not building a public mall. I mean.
But you gotta put some limit on it, or else you're
Yeah.
10 by 20,
Yeah.
and call it chicken coop.
Do we wanna put a limit on that right now? I mean, right now, we're setting the standards for this, I'd say get it all out
Some
before
other
we.
cities do have,
This one doesn't.
No.
Did anybody see it in there? 'Cause I didn't, but there,
Ham Lake has 150 square feet is the max, and then it's also considered an accessory building, it actually calls it out in their ordinance.
would we really even need 150 square feet? That's a pretty large coop.
Yeah. I don't have chickens, so I can't tell you, you know, if somebody has chickens, how big you have your hen house?
it doesn't need to be very big, it's
Well,
preference.
like that.
Well, what would you say, 10 by 5?
For how many?
5 by 5 for 6 chickens? And I don't think 5 foot by 5 foot is more than adequate, I would think.
Some of these are crazy, 200 square feet, 1,080 square feet. I mean, what are you building here, a house for them or a coop?
Mr. Mayor, also, Minneapolis has a specific on theirs that says 4 square feet provided for each fowl housed inside the physical coop. So each one needs 4 square feet, that seems a little excessive, but I don't have chickens, so. Just an example of,
So I figured just one bed, one thing like that.
But that's, but if you have 4 square feet for 6 chickens, that's,
24
Probably
square
two.
feet.
24 square feet, which
Yeah,
isn't very big.
that's not very big.
Probably though even 2 is sufficient.
that's
Yeah. So, I mean, even if we said 50 square feet, I think that would be plenty.
Yeah.
Well,
Maximum.
depends on how many chickens you have though.
But they're only gonna be allowed 6.
Yeah, not very many houses.
Smaller lots, it's only 6, but if we want to follow that, then it could be as many as 50 in the big
Yeah,
ones.
but do you know anybody that has 10 acres in the
No,
city by Sandy?
no, I don't.
I don't know,
How about
maybe
5?
more than an acre.
Probably not.
How about
There's
2.5?
Yeah, we do have some that
If
is
you-
3.
I mean, 3 is
Some of those
the
limits.
biggest lot size, so we could easily say 1 to 3 acres is only allowed 6 chickens.
Okay.
So we're allowing 50 square feet for the largest chicken coop, and it should be more than efficient.
Some people will store their meat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There.
That's where you're drawing the other animals, I would think though, but you're putting their food out there with them.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
you can put them in a.
they are food, but now you're putting the food up there as well for the predators.
And most likely they're gonna have it maybe close to nothing can get into it.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I was just gonna say that. You'd be surprised when those foxes came in.
the box.
Mayor and council, do we want to maybe briefly discuss what we'll do, for code enforcement wise, if they get loose and, like animal control just does dogs, so we don't do anything with cats, we don't do anything with rabbits, are we?
We terminate them and give them to a food shelf.
Or we have a chicken feed here.
There we go.
Sheila, do you have a recommendation, did anyone
Maybe
have
some
any?
Chicken
Afraid of feet, I was just gonna say chicken afraid of.
Well, I know somebody that roasted for us.
I
Give
didn't,
them
I didn't want to say
Give them
it.
to Jimmy's Pizza, and you can make a chicken Alfredo pizza for us.
I have no
Myers.
recommendation on enforcement.
There you go. Chief Myers can do a cookout for us, and
So staff will research what we would do for enforcement on that and bring that back when we have a draft.
call me harsh, but
ordinance.
that's what I would do. I'd terminate them, to be honest with you.
Well, like in here, it does say, I know it's in here, something about free roam chickens have to be,
The slaughtering of chickens, turkeys,
Has to
and
be
ducks,
watched.
Village Public is prohibited. Well, that's a good one.
where was that?
Must be kept in a fenced area, the city does not allow keeping up free range chickens or turkeys on the property.
There you go. Yeah, well, what happens if we do catch them? That's what we're
Well,
looking
and
for.
we will run into, I
Free
mean,
range is
probably.
allowed if animals are supervised and fenced.
And it was unsupervised.
Well, if some people want their sheep unleashed, they might walk their chickens, you never know.
So staff will work
Seen
on,
it.
we'll look into what we would do maybe for enforcement on
See,
that.
right here, nice Annie.
But I do wanna let you know that there may be someone who has a show chicken that if it gets out one time, gets killed, whatever, that can become,
That could bite
bad
us.
thing too. We don't, when people get attached to their animals and they could be attached to their show chicken or something like that, kid 4-H, who knows? Anyways, staff will look into enforcement and we'll make sure that we bring that back with a draft ordinance for the next committee of the whole.
Sounds good, Ms. Wood. You're awesome. Let's bounce back to item number 1, now that our latecomer, Chief Meyer, showed up for police department updates.
And Mayor and Council, myself, Ms. Brooks, we're doing interviews for lieutenant position, so.
Excuses, Adam.
Katie's passing out all the statistics from the first 6 months of the year, broken down on one page, first quarter, second quarter, and the half-year statistics that we have so far. Looking back, there's nothing that has jumped out, anything that's different or extraordinary. There's no trends that are unusual compared to what we have. At the bottom of the fleet maintenance, we did not list our 2 new fleet vehicles, 2 new Dodge Durangos. One was put into service approximately a month ago, and the other one was put into service last Thursday. So those 2 will be added for fleet service with squad number 221 scheduled for replacement next year. As far as personnel updates, staffing's been a concern and a priority for us. Right now, we have 2 officers that have completed their field training programs. They'll be on the council tonight for their swearing in. We have 1 more officer that's going through a background process to be hired, and we have another posting that is just closed that we'll start interviews for. So we still have 2 more officers we'll hire before the end of the year, in addition to the lieutenant position, which we interviewed the first round interviews today.
Was that anybody internally?
No, it's in our consent agenda for offering the position to the gentleman. And he was not
And he was
internal.
not an internal candidate, he is a deputy for another agency right now, so it should be a good fit. Yeah, our officers just, again, we have the officers that have been with us for a long time, that have dedicated their time as well as our part-time officers to maintain the coverage we needed in our times of short staffing, so I'd like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication every one of them have put in. We have part-time officers that are averaging 24 hours a week, and they have been since the first of the year to maintain our coverages where we need to be. Just so you're aware, once we're at full staff, our part-time officers are there as an ancillary hours to fulfill vacation and sick time request. Our full-time officers fill the actual patrol coverage, however, now in our short time, we're using those part-time officers to actually fill patrol shifts. And like I said, I think there's 2 officers that maintain 24 hours a week on a regular basis, and 1 other 12-hour week, plus all the other ones that fill in there too. So they've done a great job, as well as the full-time officers, to adjusting their schedules and maintaining our coverage. Our coverage hasn't really changed with our short staffing. We just had a very strong influx of our part-time coverage for our patrol responses. Obviously, we just got done with the rodeo, which is always one of our higher call loads, staffing-wise. Turned out to be a good event. Again, I think both nights we had 6 patrol officers and a plethora of our reserves. Our reserves came out in full force, as well as Cambridge reserves. Cambridge sent 1 officer down on a bike patrol to assist our officers as well. So we utilize their services, even their volunteer services, to help protect our city during that time. There hasn't been any in our realm, any major criminal activity or incidences that we see are abnormal from what we normally deal with. I know that's later on the agenda with maybe we can briefly talk about the storm drain thing, where we had an incident where the special needs child was found in the storm drains, who had taken off from his parents. He is enrolled in Operation Lifesaver through the county. So as a county agency, they put up Operation Lifesaver, which is like a GPS, not GPS, but it's a telemetry tracking device, where these adults that are special needs, or children with special needs that walk away, that they have a response, they can come out and actually track these people down. In that case, he actually removed the tracker. They found the tracker and ended up finding actually 8 to 10-year-old kid that was in the storm drains of South Brookview, block away from Whiskey. So I reached out to Matt to make sure that we can maintain, see how that happened, see what we do to prevent some of that. I think Matt has more on that.
And it sounds like Mr. Sylvester and Mr. Cook have a plan implemented to solve that issue, correct? So we should have no more kids hiding in sewer drains.
Correct. Just as far as the department-wide, all the officers have reached out, and we're working on establishing a mission, vision statement, as well as core values that we'll bring back to council here in probably next month or so, to fulfill the needs of our community. So our officers are all engaged. They're all gonna have some part in developing those statements. Again, it's not just a statement, it's gonna be a code by what they do their service in. So we're working on that.
I do gotta say that, and I'm pretty sure I speak on the council by saying we appreciate each and every officer's due diligence within that police department of upholding it while we are short officers. We can't thank them enough for that, but don't sell yourself short either, because I know since you've been on, I've seen morale go through the roof in that police department, so good job by you as well.
Thank you.
I'd like to add too, on my street, we had some great community policing going on here last week. There was a few burglary attempts or whatever throughout the street, and they were going door to door, let people know. Make sure you lock your car doors and your garage doors, keep them shut. They were very professional, and that was really nice to see.
Yeah, with that initiative, I put it out to every one of our patrol officers that I was seeking input from them on what we can do for community engagement and whatnot. And that was actually an idea by one of the patrol officers to come up with a half sheet, just a reminder to lock your doors with influx of burglaries. It accomplished 2 tasks. One task was to notify the neighborhoods, because everybody knows they should lock their doors, but just as a reminder. But it also gave the opportunity for the officers to get out of their car, go meet the public outside, just driving by. So that's one of many initiatives.
Oh, yeah, in the past, this was maybe probably before you started here, but at my old neighborhood, I didn't know about string burglaries until 3 days after it happened from a neighbor. At that time, we didn't have police officers coming around door to door, let people know.
And that'll fold into with our Facebook, with the last council session, you approved that policy of the police department. We have it built, so we're just gonna publish it probably this week would be my assumption. We'll actually push it out there.
As well as we okayed National Night Out, so that's gonna be another tool that'll, they'll get out and get to know the communities can know them. It's another good tool for informing the community of what's happening inside now for the police department, but.
I know two officers that were on my street, and all my neighbors, we talked a lot, and they were all pretty impressed with those two officers. One was Jeremy, the person that we sworn in tonight, and his training officer. They did our street, and they did.
Correct, and every officer knows that that is one of our top priorities, is the community outreach piece, and they're all, I'm tasking on them to come up with some ideas and actually take that initiative as one of their top priorities. With the National Night Out, again, I'll encourage every one of you sitting up there and live in the community to seek out people that are interested in hosting these block parties. If you have somebody who wants to host a block party, they can reach out to me, and I'll assist them in coordinating that event for their neighborhood. With our presence will stop by as well as the fire department.
Get back to the, I've got a couple questions about that. I thought about after the last meeting, but like, my old neighborhood, they used to live in cul-de-sacs. Is there any way if the public, would like to borrow a couple barricades or something like that from Public Works? Not a through street, but say cul-de-sac or something like that? Is that something that would be feasible, or is that a little too much?
The only thing that we currently have within policy about, giving out public works equipment is if they fill out a special event permit. Part of that special event is to request assistance from PD, Public Works, or other things like cones or whatever.
Cones would probably be
So,
easy.
unless we had something separate that went through council, you do wanna keep track, because then we have a way to charge them back if they don't return it, and we
Right.
keep track of it. My suggestion would be if they need to have something like that, that they actually fill out that permit. And then that gives, because it's about,
It's-
taxpayer money that.
It would be no
council
cost to
can
them,
use.
but it would be a way to track it,
There's no cost.
just a
And
way
then-
to track the equipment.
And then council gives you approval to use equipment for such reason. Staff cannot give that.
The only thing is what a cul-de-sac is, there really isn't any traffic, people to.
Right, but they typically.
You always
set
get
up
somebody
stuff
that wants to
actually.
drive in it. Always get somebody that wants to drive in a cul-de-sac. I told them along.
Like, they actually set stuff up in the cul-de-sac, you know, so not everybody had a place to gather, it was kind of neutral.
Perhaps another alternative is, because we do have the ability by that council approval for PD to get engaged with these people. PD does have some cones that they have too, and so maybe that's something that just police helps and says, hey, we see you're having a block
Yeah,
party tonight, here's some
that'd
cones
be-
for you to help out.
that'd
Or
be easier.
that would be maybe something for them, that they
It's
can
not
see
like
that
you
there's,
need
maybe they throw
12
some in the
cones.
trunk, and they throw,
Yeah.
borrow
Well,
them out
you
or
need a
something.
couple of columns just to kind of catch me.
I think for the cul-de-sacs would be a lot easier than, through a street, probably a lot more than,
Yeah.
just have to throw a couple cones out.
Yep. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Chief Myers? All right, moving on to item 3, paving alleys.
Okay, Councilmember Berkeley had requested to put this on the agenda currently, and we do have the capital improvement plan that'll be going at the second budget work session, so not tonight, but coming up. Where the paving of all the alleys within the city are on the 2029 schedule. So that is when they will all be done.
There's only one, two of them there.
We have down by Quest here, we have Elam Lane, technically is a street, we have over by Norelius.
First one, the third one.
Yep, that's Norelius, yeah,
So that's 3.
so that's three.
There's the creamery too.
Oh, and by the creamery, there's four.
4.
Yeah, along the railroad tracks, but I don't think that's classified technically as an alley, right?
And then
That's 5.
Well, that's railroad, right? Along the alley, along Short Street?
I know what you're talking about.
Whatever.
Where the parking lot is.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Jason, do you know if that's included in that plan?
That's
Short
not-
Street? I don't think so.
Cause that actually get us into that whole same accessing, along the railroad, that we did that easement acquisition, from the railroad, we did our alley. And, but yeah, otherwise, it's already designated as Short Street, that piece, so if we didn't wanna connect that, it would actually be designated as a street. Otherwise,
With the short street by the church.
That's Elam. Short Street goes,
And connect to the alley behind
south,
church.
south of
So there's 4.
Well, yeah, I guess, on the capital improvement plan, there's technically 5 actual alley segments in the region between Third and First. And then Elam and then Viola, the little stub street that's on the north side of the church, that's kind of part of the parking lot.
So my question would be is why are we waiting so long?
We brought it up in the past before, and it was just a finance kind of thing. Then we talked about doing them as projects, streets were around that area being rebuilt.
So my recommendation, Mayor and Council, is if you'd like to discuss where that falls within the projects and what year they're outlined, is we wait until the capital improvement plan gets laid out at one of the upcoming council or committee of the whole meetings as a budget work session number 2, because that's where, if we want to move that up forward, it is possible, but then something else is gonna slide back, so it's kind of a bigger conversation than just moving the alleys around. We wanna maybe look at prioritizing street projects. That'd be my recommendation.
I would say we move it forward.
Yeah, I just bring it up because I had a resident approach me on it, so I thought I'd bring it up to Ms. Woods, and she said that it was on the schedule for 2029.
That seems crazy. I've had 2, besides your one, I've had 2 that approached me. One of them might be the same one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, I
when
approached
brought
you
it up.
over when we were at the.
2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, that would've been
Yeah.
fair.
We ended
Yeah,
up
because
just
we
doing
talked-
gravel.
We discussed about, well, we did change, we started putting down class 2 gravel instead of, class 5, so
Right.
that did help. Helped with also the rutting of it as well, which there were some complaints about that, maybe not grading as often. There was has come up in the past about putting, sodium chloride down to keep that, which we haven't done, we don't have necessarily the equipment, but we could look at that as an option, just never was entertained in the past.
It just seems crazy to me that we're putting a Band-Aid on a problem here. Why don't we just?
Well, it's not always necessarily a problem. There's, what's an example? We'll say there's an alley coming off Fifth Street, just whatever the property is, but when Fifth Street was gonna be redone, all the equipment, the material, everything's already gonna be there, so it's cheaper to do that alley if that's the same project.
Right, but what I'm saying though, Councilman Carlson, is we're constantly putting class 5 or class 2 down.
I don't think they've done it in probably over a year now, 2 years.
They've all been done at this point.
Yeah.
Yep,
So we're done this year.
we're done with it this year, yep. Yep.
Are you doing it every year?
We have done it the last 3 years,
That's crazy.
but we haven't done every alley every year. We did it in sections. So we did an earliest one, the money budget for the earliest, and then we did the creamery the next year. So we kind of spread them out over the last 3 years.
But
So
you
that they were all
see my
done.
point, Mr. Sylvester, is we're class 5ing or class 2ing these every year, every other year, when we could just pave them and be done with it.
Quadruple price.
How much is class 5, I mean, how long are we in with class 5 or class 2? We're gonna catch up to just paving price here pretty soon, at the rate we're going.
When you pay something, we're gonna put curb and gutter, that does get more costly, so we spent about
Okay, now we're
$7,800.
talking more money.
78, we're not gonna.
Alleys?
Curb it?
We're gonna curb and gutter an alley?
I don't know.
Yeah, the plan wasn't to put curb and gutter on the alley, so
Yeah.
we're just gonna pave them. There
Okay.
is a little more extra on, storm, like management, stormwater, on how we're gonna treat where the water's gonna actually go. Cause right now it is kinda,
You don't want
areas that are just pockets to trap water and things. We'll have to do a little extra, but. it's not-
Some, I know it's irrelevant, but where the city I grew up in, and I don't wanna say what city, I think you guys all know, but they kinda went like this. So where all the water would drain to the center and then drain to the end of the street.
We have something like that too.
That's the problem, is that they end then, a lot of these alleys are kind of safe, and so, yeah, just some more about it, it's just a little bit fancier than just the straight pave, but certainly can do it, we already have the kind of plan laid out, but cost-wise, I think our plan is saying that all those combined would be somewhere in the $350,000 range, just to pave them and. get
For
them going.
6 alleys?
Elam's,
My parking
Free
was
block.
$2,500.
like,
God, I need to go into the paving business.
That's for pricing,
So-
that's not as, that,
Re-gravel them and stuff like that every few years.
Yeah, what's that costing us every time? Councilman Gordon here, see where I'm going.
We budgeted $7,800 for the gravel, the last $2,000 for the last 3 years. For the alleys.
You said 7,800?
7,800, yep.
7,280.
7,800.
7,800, 7,800.
Times 3, so I mean,
that was for the 3 years.
That's for the 3 years total, or?
Was
is that for the 3 years total, or is
That
that
was
per
each
year?
Each year.
And we're doing that every year then?
That, well, it's probably as needed now, isn't it?
Yeah,
all been done.
it's really has, I mean, there wasn't that much last year, but we have these other roads down here we're gonna try to address next year.
Well, we go another 3 years, we'll be right up there with the pavement price.
Be,
We're gonna go to 2029, well, we've exceeded that pavement price.
We haven't done it in like 10 years, so I don't anticipate in the next 10 years that we would be adding any more gravel. It would just be grading a couple times a year as.
Now we're wasting public works time and equipment and fuel and,
It doesn't take very long to go out and grade the alleys at this point. I mean, he goes out and grade all the alleys in probably 2 hours. And if we're getting complaints on the alleys, we can go out there and address the complaints. Is it complaints if there's potholes in the alleys, or is it they're just not tarred? If they need to get graded, we can grade them.
here's the bottom line. Mr. Becker, is this feasible to move closer than 2029?
The reason that those projects are in year 2029 was so that the projects related to the annexed parcels could maintain their position. It is the issue of collecting the funds ahead of time in order to pay for those projects that becomes the crux of the issue. We can address it at the next budget workshop, but yeah, ultimately, there would be 2 choices. If you move that forward, another project moves back, or the street reconstruction levy would go up in the interim.
Well, why don't we look at it at the next budget workshop, and at least we know we got the hard numbers in front of us.
I agree. Any other further questions or comments on item 3? Moving on to item 4, mosquito control discussion. Mr. Sylvester, once again.
Mayor and council, we talked about this at the last committee of the whole meeting. I was asked to bring back some more information on it. So we contracted out for, if a homeowner contracted out to have their yard done, we're looking at anywhere between $86 and $104 per lot, if they contracted that out.
Say that again, Mr. Sylvester.
It's $86 to $104 were the 3 bids that I had. So if you wanted somebody to come into your lot, it's somewhere between $86 and $104 to do your lot. Now, most companies that come and treat your lot, they don't fog it, they treat it with a spray. So they treat all the green foliage around their house in your yard. That's how they treat it. It's not necessarily a fog, it's a spray. On the average, it'll last about 3 weeks before needing to reapply it. And it's interesting to know, that I thought it was anyway, that there are strictly organic products that you can use. That somebody think that they're into the organic, you can use organic products to spray for mosquitoes around your yard. There are companies that deal with strictly organic products.
Is that any more expensive?
No, that was actually the least expensive one. The $86 one was all organic. Now, that same company said they would come in and do all the city lots in town for $8,000 to $10,000 per visit. So if they came and did it, they said 4 to 6 times a year, between $8,000 and $10,000, they'd come spray the city lots in town. Now, that was a price without them coming out, looking at the town. That was just, you know what, taking on the average $8,000 to $10,000 per visit to come spray it.
So essentially, organically, we'll say $8,000, they'd come on spray.
Theoretically, yeah. He said it would smell like a Italian restaurant. You'd want garlic bread when you're all done.
I'm for that, or Jimmy's Pizza.
So, so the chemical used for neighboring cities is called a Permanone RTU. It's ready to use, no mixing required. It's highly toxic to bees. It's extremely toxic to fish and organic aquatic organisms. It's non-restricted, meaning we can purchase it. We don't need our license to go and get it. It's a government agency. It's purchased through a company called Adapco. The vendor that I talked to stated that we have to really have a spill to really kill fish. You have to spill it in water to kill the fish. It's not necessarily a fog, but he did recommend staying 100 feet away from any waters that contain fish. Okay? It's non-restricted chemicals. We don't need to have a license for spraying in-house. Now, the other things to consider, two of the public works guys said they were against it for health and scheduling reasons. They do a lot of stuff at night. Play volleyball, softball, they do stuff at night, didn't want to be tied down when they weren't on call. Two other public work guys were kind of on the fence of wanting to do it. They wanted something in their bargaining agreement contract that we decided to move forward with. They want something in the contract that you get a little incentive to come in and do it. Another thing to consider is it might not reach your backyard if you're spraying it from the street. Wind needs to be less than 5 miles an hour to apply. It only kills the adult mosquitoes, doesn't kill the larvae from hatching. And I think that really what we should be looking at is just educating people about just the little bit of water that's around your house that can just mosquito breeding grounds. And the one guy that I talked to, he says, you take a bottle cap full of water, that'll breed 1,000 mosquitoes every summer. So it's really just all the little things that people have standing water in their backyards, whether it's a bucket or a bird bath or a tire or whatever else that just holds water. I thought maybe posting something in the paper on the city's website about standing water might be something considered. If we did some other equipment, so if we wanted to do like in the parks with a backpack fogger, you're looking at about $2,000 for that. And if we had a unit that slid in the back of our side-by-side, that's about $3,500.
Councilman Collison, how often does Cambridge spray for mosquitoes?
It varies with weather. Right now, with this new hot weather, there's a new hatch. So, I mean, the weather dictates when you go and spray.
And if they sprayed, so say they went out and sprayed tonight, and it storms tomorrow, they have to spray the next night because they washed it up.
If you don't get like, recently we got really down hardcore rain, that will pretty much, but the chemical that City Cambridge uses, it's got like a 5 to 7 day kill ratio. If it doesn't get hard, it won't work rain on.
So you're looking at the 10-day forecast and trying to time it? I mean, it's
Well,
probably
sometimes you
possible.
schedule it, but sometimes it gets canceled because maybe
Rain's coming.
wind's too high. We got 15, 20 mile an hour winds. So sometimes they go once a week, sometimes they go once every 3 weeks, and sometimes it's twice a week. I don't know where twice a week. And that's drying mosquito season.
Get more chickens.
I go way up the chickens to 13 of them.
I get a lot of residents that are, I think we all have a lot of residents that approached us on this.
It's a 9-day difference. Cambridge, I got relatives that live in Cambridge. The next day after fogging, they can enjoy their backyard. I mean,
You can't do that in the city. I can't. I don't know anybody around me that
I
can.
bought a fogger. And that's, my neighbors love it.
I'm sure they do, because you're not only doing your lawn, you're doing theirs as well.
It drips, yeah.
I think the ones we're hearing about now are the people that want to have it done. I think as we start spraying it, we're hearing about the people that didn't want to have it done.
I think there's more that want it than don't.
Yeah, it could be.
And I think the biggest complainers are along Rum River.
Yeah, and there's a lot of backwater there, how we're gonna.
And that's gonna be a problem issue.
Well,
Because we have to stay 100 feet away from it.
But this, you go down the street.
Yeah, but that's not getting your backyard though, so they,
Well,
it's in the
it
front.
will.
It will?
It depends on the direction of the wind and the direction of the street. It varies.
So contracting this out, we're facetiously speaking here, Mr. Sylvester. We contracted it out organically. They would charge us $8,000 every time they sprayed. Compared,
$8,000 to $10,000 every time they spray, but I did not include parks in that either. That was just residential homes.
compared to if we buy a $3,500 unit and put it on the back of one of our pickups.
Well, I threw that in there because I thought that if you wanted to spray inside the parks, that might be something we could consider there. If we want to
Do it
spray up and down the roads, that's the $10,000 unit, and we need to have two of them.
So you're saying we paid $8,000 to $10,000 for somebody to come in and contract spray, and then you wanna do the unit yourself to do the parks? On top of that? So you're saying $8,000 to $10,000, we'll say, for Councilman Lundine's company to come in and to spray for the city of Isani, And then you wanna get a unit for your public works truck that you can,
No.
If you wanted to spray those parks in those areas, you would need something like that to do it, yes.
because he's not doing it. You're
And
gonna,
that wasn't included in the $10,000 figure, that was just
so 13,500 will,
for one time. For the 10,000 was for one time.
and is this gonna go down, or is it just a straight flat fee every year?
That's just one spraying, that's not 4 times, 5 times, some months, that's just one time.
That's $10,000 for 3 weeks.
How many times a year do you spray it, Councilman Collison in Cambridge?
Like I said, it varies. 1 year average, I'd say lately, half a dozen, for sure.
The last time we talked about this, I think it was 20,000-ish or something like that for the equipment that we would need, which would be the 2 trucks, and then you were thinking it was like 4,000 a year basically for the supplies to go ahead and do the application process, right?
Yep, I had $20,000 for the 2 units, then I had $2,000 for overtime, and then for the chemicals, so $4,000, right?
Okay. And that was not per time, that was for the entire season?
That was the
not-
season, yeah.
Right. So it's a lot cheaper if we wanted to invest the money and do it ourselves.
Then we're gonna have to probably hire 2 new temporary seasonal employees, cause it doesn't sound like.
Well, this would be full-time staff coming and doing it, but there need to be some incentive for them to come and want to do it.
So you-
We'd have to change their job description to add mosquito spraying in there.
There's still a
And
little
then
more
some
homework
incentive
that
to
I
come
feel
and
that
do it.
needs to be done here.
Isn't there something in the job description, and usually at the end of them it says, and other duties as assigned?
Well, theoretically, it's in there, yeah,
So, and
So
that's the way it is.
but there's still
Cambridge.
no incentive for me to get 4 guys who want to come and do it. They're gonna need something in their contract that gives them some incentive in there.
Well, it'd be time and a half.
Yeah,
They're aligned.
they're aware of that.
I'll
I
make
like that, I like that
Incentive.
time and a half, I mean, I don't know if we need to.
Let's do a little more homework and bring this back to the August.
So basically, we're not doing mosquito spraying this year.
We wouldn't this year.
This year,
I just wanted
we
to
couldn't
be
get it
clear.
done this year.
I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, we couldn't get it done this year, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we can get it done next year.
If we decide to get it done next year, we're gonna need a line item in the budget to get that done.
We have a little more homework to do, so let's do a little more homework and bring it back to the August cow.
Right, sounds good?
Thanks, Mr. Sylvester. Moving on to item 5, Minspec Building Inspection Services Discussion, Ms. Wood.
I'm actually gonna turn this over to Sheila. Sheila is gonna briefly discuss this and then I'll share the plan going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We brought this forward, because the mayor asked us to bring this forward, have a discussion about Inspect, who does our current building inspections for us. As you see in the report, we've gotten, a few complaints about their service, about their time of permits. We did have a very good meeting with the owner of Inspect last week, and they have asked to come before the council, so we are going to put them on the next cow agenda to have them come and give a report, kind of like how Travis gave his report today. They're gonna do one on the building inspection aspect of things, where we can ask some questions and, have them address some of the concerns at that time. We can table this until then, or we can talk about now, it's up to the council.
I'm curious on it. I say we, and you guys can intervene if you object, but I say we table it to see what kind of information they bring us. And if we don't like that information, at that point, we can speak up.
I concur.
Anybody object? Sounds good. Moving on to item 6, liquor store DVR and camera replacement. And we do have our liquor store manager here, John.
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I just want to talk about this because I had discussed this originally in January, and our need to upgrade the system. Not only the inability to accurately identify individuals using our system. Right now, we have 9 cameras. I have 7 dead zones in the store, meaning there's no camera coverage at all. Then I run into the issue where the DVR's been acting up on me, so times where it doesn't record, or I attempt to run back video and there's no day there, it's missing. One morning I came in, the fan was making noise, I sprayed air in it, quit. So I'm having issues. So what I'm asking is that we amend the budget for this year to replace the DVR cameras, to upgrade the system, provide a more user-friendly system. The estimates that I have received so far would put the cost replacement under $5,000.
Mr. Becker, is that feasible? Yeah? Anybody in the council have an objection about
I just wanna know where we're taking the funds from, Mr. Becker.
As an enterprise fund, it would have to come out of the liquor store's budget. Ultimately, if either doesn't have net income at the end of the year, then it just comes out of fund balance.
Is that like- is that-
For that dollar amount and the necessity of that equipment, I think that we definitely have it.
So it's just less donation to the city then for 1 month or whatever? Whatever that money comes from.
For a week at John's rate?
Yeah.
I think we should, I think anybody objects, by all means speak up, but if, I think we should move it forward to council
Yes.
to definitely amend it and get him his new system pronto.
I agree.
Anybody disagree? Awesome. Moving on to item 7, fund balance policy, Mr. Becker. Please take the mic, Mr. Becker. Scoot over, chief.
Who says the chief can't be cooperative?
He just wants to close.
So, as we, at the end of 2017, general fund balance as measured against the next year's budgeted expenditures was at 58%. At the end of the last audit, we're down to 34%. Currently, our fund balance policy requires that we restore that fund balance to at least 50% within 2 years. That is really not particularly feasible. To do that based on the budget that's presented for the budget workshop tonight, we would be talking about adding somewhere in the ballpark of $400,000 to the levy that's presented for each of the next 2 years to get us back on track. I think the simple and better solution is to understand that the discussion all along had been that restoring fund balance was going to occur over a 10-year period. However, of course, our policy precludes that. The simple solution is to simply remove 3 words from our current fund balance policy that simply say within 2 years. If we simply take those 3 words out, it still obliges the council to review the fund balance on an annual basis. It still obliges the council to have a plan to restore fund balance, but doesn't restrict the council to having to have it done within 2 years. It would certainly still be the council's privy to require the plan to be 2 years or 8 years or 10, whatever the council would prescribe.
Or a goal, so to speak.
What's that?
Or a goal, so to speak. I mean,
Correct.
not in writing, but it would be a goal of ours.
Correct. In talking to our auditors and managing partner Steve McDonald, it was his assessment as well as mine that we currently have one of the most restrictive fund balance policies out there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That fund balance, our fund balance wide dip so low was hotel project, am I assuming correctly?
Correct.
Just not part of me.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, from my perspective at this point, it's, you know, how do we move forward? And, you know, a lot of cities simply require, simply have a fund balance policy that has a target for fund balance, somewhere between 35 and say 60%, and it suggests a plan, but doesn't require a plan, nor does it put a timeline on it.
Well, isn't that pleasant? I don't know if anybody would object, but I would have to agree with Mr. Becker on removing 3 simple words.
Yeah, I agree. It's
unfortunate we're put in a
unfortunate
predicament,
that we're
right?
dealing with this.
And you know what, I think he would say if he was up here, it's just too bad my predecessor put me in this spot, so. Shame on him for giving an $800,000 business subsidy to our hotel.
It's more than 800.
It's more than 800, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So taking 3 simple words, I think would be a good idea, Mr. Becker, and if we need to bring that to council, I would.
Yeah, we would bring that to the next council meeting, and of course, that would need to happen. We do have to have that before adopting the preliminary budget in September. Otherwise, we would be adopting a policy, adopting a budget that's outside of our policy. So
Better get on that, sir.
we'll take care of it.
I appreciate it. Anybody object?
No.
Awesome.
I do have to say one thing about that is, when the downtime was in the construction and things were slow, per se, when there was a lot of staff cuts and everything was done, the predecessor mayor had determined not to raise taxes at that time. So instead of, he kept a flat tax, so nobody's taxes went up in the downtimes. Instead of doing it as a 1% or 2% increase every year, which most 99% of people would be ecstatic about a 1% or 2%. When it came time to refund these balances of accounts, because there's always been a street maintenance program in effect for the city of Iceni. A lot of this money was taken out of that account to keep the taxes down for people. I mean, I can stomach a 1% or 2% increase. I can't stomach a 20% increase. And that's what ended up happening. And now this money, gifted money to the hotel, which is gonna have a 10-year payback, we're not gonna take that fund balance back in 2 years. Because that's where that money came from. So we're gonna have to address that situation as time goes. And by no means do I wanna raise taxes for people.
Nor do I.
But at some point, something's gonna have to give.
Correct.
And, by changing the standard that the previous mayor had to get that 50% fund balance worded that way, now it has to go out the door because of what was done. You don't follow in what I'm saying. I was not in favor of the city going in / quotation in business for a hotel. That's never a good thing. It would have been better to give them tax increment financing than to give it this way.
Well, I don't think Mr. Becker or 2 outside sources were for it either, but he still did what he wanted, so.
But now we got it, it's here, we have to try to support it the best that we can, but we're gonna have to figure out how we can keep this one going. At least it isn't in the negative, we're still in the positive side.
Yeah, and I do have a written out plan for how we put this back, and we can go through that at the next meeting.
And I think that's the wise thing.
We can lay that out and review that annually, and even when we would put together a 10-year plan, any particular budget year where we would have revenues higher than expected or expenditures lower than expected, that would also contribute and move that timeline ahead. So
that goes with my question. I was gonna ask, what's the recovery here? You're gonna go over that in our, was it the
Yeah.
September budget meeting?
no, we can touch on that tonight.
Okay.
But I could actually bring the schedule of exactly what dollar amounts we're talking about in each particular year and where the money is going from one fund to another, in order to get fund balance taken care of. We can go over that in the next budget workshop. Yeah.
Thank goodness for Mike Becker, that's all I know.
Yeah. We'll get it taken care of.
Anybody have any more questions, comments, concerns? Any objections to taking 3 words out of that? Awesome. Mr. Becker, you know how to move forward on that one, sir? Let's move on to item 8, cable franchise fees.
So cable franchise fees, I'm bringing this forward because when we combined the community development director position and EDA director position, there was some savings there. And in putting together the budget, and you see it reflected in the budget here that we'll go over at the workshop tonight, the EDA simply doesn't need to be taking in 60% of the cable franchise fees any longer. That allocation was 60% going to the EDA and 40% going to Technology Fund 614 was set back in 2007 as a static amount. That is, it doesn't change. My recommendation would be that for the coming budget, we would do 80% to Technology Fund 614 and just 20% to the EDA. It still leaves the EDA with extra wiggle room in the 2020 budget. It's a net income budget. And then simply put forth a a resolution that the council would approve to have that allocation set annually by the budget. So that when the budget says it's 80-20 split, that's what it is, and the next year's budget says it's 75-25, that is what it is. And the council would approve the allocation of those two revenues, or the allocation of that one revenue to those two funds annually.
I agree. I second that. I think that's a darn good idea. I just said to the whole council, anybody wanna go hug Mr. Becker besides myself? So, thanks.
It'll be a group hug.
It'll be a group. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody against?
Sheila, do you have any thoughts on that at all, or that's, and it sounds like a good idea to me too, but with that, you have any concerns on that?
No, I don't have any concerns.
That makes me feel even better. Awesome.
That Mike went a long way for that answer.
Yeah.
You could have
You could have just thumbs up us, yeah, that was good enough. Awesome, we'll move on to item number 9, storm drain covers. Mr. Sylvester, once again.
Actually, Mayor, we're gonna turn this over to Councilmember Gordon, he's the one who requested this item, so we don't
Oh,
exactly know
I
why he
didn't see
requested
that.
it. But
I think we all kind of have talked about it already, but what Travis was talking about was why I was bringing it up, so Matt, go ahead.
What was happening, I had the county look at their culverts down there too, but what was happening there was the trash, guard was missing on that culvert. And it has since been ordered every place, it's actually put on today. So I'm not aware of any other large storm drains that are missing a trash grid.
There was a gaping hole in the bottom of that one too, did we get that fixed?
That is.
Mr. Cook?
That is, scheduled to be repaired next week.
Sooner the better, awesome.
Perfect.
Anything else you got on that, Mr. Gordon?
Nope.
Any comments or concerns from the council? Moving on to item 10, stop sign on 6th Avenue by Dogwood and South Passage. Mr. Gordon, this was your item as well, I see.
You already got after me for living right there, but I just rent the house, so it's not something where I'm gonna be there for an extended period of time. We're hoping to buy a house here real soon, so I just, Travis and I talked about this a little bit too, but it's just, the cars that are going from Dogwood over to South Passage, and South Passage down to Dogwood, there's nothing to slow them down.
You wanna see how fast they can get from
No,
Dogwood
it's
to
great
South
stretch,
Passage?
and it's a nice big wide open road, and they've been, stopping at all the stop signs leading up to that if they're coming north, or south, excuse me, so, I just thought it might be something to look at. There's, what is it?
There's a 4-way stop there at Dogwood.
The Dogwood there is, yeah, but that's.
From
the last
Dogwood
one.
to South Passage, there's another intersection in between there?
Yeah, there's two.
Two?
Couple of
Yeah.
them, yeah.
So, Mr. Cook, can you touch base on that?
Yeah, so technically there are 3 intersections between Dogwood and South Passage. Technically, one is a T intersection, the other 2 are 4-way intersections, except for they both just have a stub leg to the east that doesn't actually service anything. So they all are acting as T intersections, essentially. And so, at this time, I guess it's not exactly a warranted intersection to add stop signs to. We don't really have 3-way stops at T intersections very often. And the
I feel like we're
crosswalks.
dumping stop signs everywhere in the city.
No, we got a lot of new houses coming in, and lots of young families and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe a better solution to stop signs is maybe extra control.
Yeah, that'd be.
Well, then we'd
You
have,
live there, so you know about what time of day that traffic is that way.
Well, the problem is, speed limit is 30.
Well,
Does anybody go 30 down, like, my street, Dogwood?
I do, I go 25 in the whole city.
I feel
Just
when I go 20, I feel like I'm going too fast.
I can yell at
Right.
my grandpa old man here.
I do yell at Councilman Mundine for doing 20 around the city, so. Can't you bump it up to 25? I just feel like there's stop signs everywhere. I don't know if there's an alternative. I don't,
Lower speed limits.
yeah.
And actual patrol might just be the easiest solution to that, but.
Is that
I just
feasible,
thought it was
Chief
good.
Myers?
It's
I
not-
mean, are we equipped?
It's feasible, I mean, anytime you have an issue, we do directed patrol, and when you see on Main Street, think about the time frame for somebody to go from Dogwood down to South Passage, I mean, how long does that take that person to travel there? And then trying to have that patrol at that exact time, every time, that, it's the nutshell game, it's feasible.
If we had
Some
a,
enforcement.
if we had a proper working what is that box called, chief?
Well, the speed enforcement sign.
Yeah, if that thing was properly working, maybe we could put that on Councilman Gordon's block and remind people, but I don't know that that's probably working, is it?
The technology in that's from 1980.
Next budget item.
And then there's debate whether that is an effective tool or not. It's more of a statistic grabbing tool to see what is going. That's as far as the enforcement side to see. It gives you more of a statistic of what the speeds are with that being there, whether it's a deterrent or not. I mean, all of you have driven down Highway 65. If there's a police car, everybody slows down as soon as they pass them. They're speeding back up, right? So now you have an unmanned thing with a number. Is there going to deter the actual speed? Probably not, but it will give you the statistic as far as what numbers you're looking for. That would be the tool that would be useful in a case like that, just to try to evaluate some of that.
Maybe meet with Chief Myers, Councilman Gordon, and see if you have a time frame of when they seem to be speeding by more, see if he can have extra patrol out there or something to work in that matter.
Sure, yeah, and I just thought I would bring it up, I just felt, it would feel better if I brought it up, and that's all I was trying to do, was kind of draw attention to it, and
I mean, I'm not beyond putting a stop sign out there, but if I have somebody that's saying, yeah, we wouldn't recommend it, somebody that says there's something we could do, and me saying that I feel like there's stop signs everywhere in the city.
And if you're sitting in your yard and someone actually goes down your street at 30 miles an hour, it does look like they're going a lot faster than.
It does. I think
So-
Chief Myers and I had that discussion once, I'm like, look at that one, he's like, yeah, it's 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing 50.
It does,
Yeah, it does.
because it's all the objects are passing.
I just know there's a lot of kids playing out there, and lots of, and there's
And I
probably
agree.
15 new houses since I've moved in that I can see from my living room window there, and there's kids on every corner, and they're riding bikes around, they're playing, and, you know, I mean, it just, I just thought I should bring it up, so.
I've been through a lot of small towns as I travel all summer long, and I see a lot of towns where speed limits are, you know, in streets like ours, they're set at 20.
It's
A couple of them are
I've seen.
25, I've seen, but a lot of them I go through, they're at 20. I don't know how they manage to do that, but.
Yeah, I guess on that note, we actually just addressed this, reducing the speed from 30 to 25 on, what was the,
Sandy Parkway.
Sandy Parkway. So the state, I guess, regulation is, the city does have the authority to drop a 30 mile an hour to a 25 mile an hour.
There you go.
On a few constraints, but they can't go down below that without like a speed study and an evaluation. And given the reason for it, I would assume the speed study would actually identify that the average, or 80th percentile is what it has to be set at, may increase the speed, you know, if the average driver isn't actually going 20. So to be able to get a street down that low is quite difficult, especially if it's a situation where you have people speeding. It's almost.
We could lower it to 25 if you're saying, but that's still not saying they're gonna do
Well, that would
25.
give, no, but
And then
then
there's
law enforcement a bigger,
Window,
area,
yeah.
bigger window to take people,
They're doing 35?
but there's cost. You know, what do signs run now, like $80 a piece without install?
That's crazy if that's true.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I need to order one in a while, I'm not sure
Yeah.
what it could work, will be by the time you get a post and sign and everything, yeah.
Dick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's exactly a recommended situation, because technically, if you only did this segment, and then they turned into the residential street, it would go back up to 30, and it, you know, just add.
We'd have to do it citywide if we were gonna do it.
Well, and that's, I mean, you have
That'd be
to-
crazy.
You have to kind of meet some spacing requirements and things to be able to drop it to 25, and so, yeah, you'd be required to add signs at every one of the cross streets where the speed changes, and to
I'm not
use
dis-
that rule, you have to kind of.
And I'm not disagreeing with Councilman Gordon, maybe something needs to be done. I always say, I live on Main Street and I always complain to the chief about that, so.
You know,
We're still battling and what can be done there. I'm sure you're gonna battle with it as well, and.
Well, that's actually that's the easier one, because there's a park there.
Well,
You think you can drop
You
it
would
down
think
to
so,
20?
Councilman Collison.
Can you, if there's a park, drop it to 20 without state approval?
For the length of the park, but then again,
Oh,
you have to do
okay.
signage before and after.
See, there's always a hiccup somewhere.
Uh,
And I didn't even have to ask Mr. Cook. The chief knew that.
The only other thought, just, those simple children at play, those little, plastic.
I've taken every avenue I can
Kinda
and keep
sticking those.
stopping me.
I like those signs over by the community garden that says, drive like your kids live here.
Yeah, they got those all over people's yard.
Yeah.
Drive like your kids are on.
Maybe we can get a few of those open down Main Street.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something we'll figure out, Mr. Gordon.
Some of them might speed faster though.
50 points. No, I'm kidding.
That's how bad they're concerned.
All right, let's move on to the last item that was added, number 11, which you gentlemen don't have it, but I do. Signal study, County Road 5 in East Dual. Ms. Wood, you do have the paperwork in front of you though, the WSB, the one there in front of you guys.
Correct, so Mayor and Council, staff, myself, Mr. Cook, as well as Mayor Johnson did go over and meet with the county engineer, Richard Hellman, I believe is his last name.
Hillman?
And also Kevin Van Hoosier over there. And the purpose of the meeting was that they had listened to concerns that were shared by the mayor himself, and as well as I believe that the county commissioner that is in our district was also helpful in this too. And that was to evaluate by doing a study along the corridor between the railroad tracks along County Road 5 or Heritage Boulevard all the way to 65. What you have before you is the proposal, and that is for WSB, who's an engineering firm, to be contracted with a joint partnership between the Isani County and also proposed for the city of Isani. This is to look at the intersection of East Dual and County Road 5, as well as Credit Union Drive, to see traffic counts, to look at the design of potentially, could there be a signal, maybe a three-legged signal? Could there be a roundabout? Could there be some other kind of hybrid traffic control installed? So they're looking at all that, and what the county is asking is, because this is a joint, would be a joint venture, they're asking for us to fund part of this. So the proposal before you is $27,148, and the county is asking if the city would pay for 1/3 of that cost, and they would pay for 2/3 of that cost.
Absolutely.
They recognize the fact that they may need this study done anyways, whether we wanted or requested a signal or some kind of traffic control, but it does help us as well. So staff is looking for consensus, and if you are on board, we would put this on the next city council meeting with funding coming from Streets 303, which would be engineering.
Like literally on council meeting after this meeting. That's how quick they wanna move. They're saying they can have the study done by September
Absolutely.
of this year.
1/3 of that cost, and they're gonna cover the other 2/3, absolutely.
Anybody
So
against it?
it's 1/3 of the 27,148.
Correct, it's
Correct.
roughly about $9,000.
Yeah, I would be for that.
I concur.
I tell you what, if they put a stoplight in there, that'll help the rest of the businesses all along 5. But I don't know if you, any of you sat there coming out of the hardware store, or liquor store, trying to get on 5 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it stinks.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I never take it.
Now we added 6,000 vehicles a day coming out of Quick Trip on top of that.
So absolutely, I'm 100% for that.
It's like when the British Sky Car was here, he said he was not happy when we put that turn lane over at, no, not by the Quick Trip, by the Family Dollar store.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, the mayor turned it over to Councilor Collison, and we told him, never take a left, always take a right, go around the block. Pretty much all day long, I circle around back around here to City Hall, or even to Dolan Street.
Even coming across here from the police department, coming across, fine.
Crazy.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's, traffic is,
Yeah.
and that'll help alleviate a lot of that problem up and down that street, so.
So, yes, we would say go forward with that, Ms. Wood, and let's put it on the council meeting that follows this. Anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns, or discussion?
I think a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Lundin, and a motion and a second by Councilman Burgley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Therefore, we